Welcome to today's video. Have you ever wondered which football club is actually the richest in the world? Most fans immediately think of Real Madrid, Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, or perhaps Barcelona. After all, those are the clubs constantly dominating headlines, signing superstars, and lifting major trophies. But what if the richest football club isn't the one everyone talks about? What if the true giant of football wealth operates quietly, away from the spotlight, building influence that stretches far beyond the football pitch? Today, we're uncovering one of football's most fascinating hidden stories. A story about unimaginable wealth, global power, strategic planning, and a football empire that many fans still underestimate. And by the end of this story, you may look at football's financial landscape very differently. To understand this mystery, we need to go back several decades. For most of football history, being rich meant having a wealthy owner, a large stadium, or a successful team. Clubs earned money from ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships, and television deals. The formula seemed simple. Then football changed. The arrival of billionaire investors transformed the game. Suddenly clubs had access to resources that previous generations could barely imagine. Transfer records exploded. Wages skyrocketed. Entire squads could be rebuilt in a single summer. Yet among all these wealthy clubs, one organization began creating something much bigger than a football team. A football ecosystem. An empire. A machine designed not just to win matches but to influence football globally. Many people know the name Manchester City, but far fewer understand the enormous structure behind it. The real story begins in 2008. At the time, Manchester City was a respected English club but nowhere near the dominant force we know today. Their city rivals Manchester United were among the most successful clubs on earth. City often lived in their shadow. Then everything changed. The club was purchased by the Abu Dhabi United Group, backed by Sheikh Mansour. Almost overnight, football entered a new era. Fans around the world noticed the transfers. They saw famous players arriving. They saw huge spending. But what most people didn't notice was something happening behind the scenes. The owners weren't thinking only about Manchester City. They were thinking much bigger. Instead of building a single club, they started building a global football network. Years later, this vision would become City Football Group. And that's where the story becomes truly fascinating. Imagine owning not one football club but multiple clubs across different continents. Imagine having teams in England, Spain, Australia, the United States, Japan, India, Brazil, Uruguay, Belgium, and beyond. That is exactly what happened. City Football Group expanded into a football empire unlike anything the sport had ever seen. Suddenly, talent could be developed across an international network. Young players could move between clubs. Scouting information could be shared globally. Coaching philosophies could spread across continents. What looked like a football club was becoming something closer to a multinational corporation. And many fans barely noticed. As this network expanded, another question emerged. How rich was it becoming? The answer surprised even financial experts. While clubs like Real Madrid and Manchester United generated enormous annual revenues, City Football Group possessed something different. Scale. The organization wasn't dependent on one stadium, one country, or one fan base. It had assets spread around the world. This created a level of influence that traditional football clubs struggled to match. Yet the wealth wasn't always visible. Unlike clubs constantly boasting about their finances, much of the group's power came through infrastructure. Training facilities, academies, scouting systems, technology, data analysis, long-term investments. The result was a football machine built for sustainability rather than short-term headlines. And then came another twist. Many fans assume that football success is purchased entirely through transfers. Buy expensive players. Win trophies. Simple. But City Football Group invested heavily in something less glamorous. Information. Data became one of their most valuable assets. Advanced analytics helped identify talent before competitors discovered it. Scouting networks stretched across continents. Every decision became more precise. Every investment became more calculated. While rivals focused on the next superstar, City Football Group often focused on building systems. Systems don't make newspaper headlines, but systems win over time. This approach helped Manchester City transform from occasional challengers into one of football's most dominant teams. Yet even that success created controversy. As Manchester City began collecting Premier League titles, Champions League trophies, and domestic cups, critics questioned how such rapid growth had become possible. Supporters celebrated a football revolution. Opponents saw something different. Debates emerged about financial regulations, competitive balance, and the future of football itself. Suddenly Manchester City became one of the most discussed clubs in the world. But here's the irony. Even during all those debates, many people still didn't understand the scale of the organization behind the club. Because Manchester City was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. The real story was the network. And the network kept growing. Then came another fascinating development. The football world began noticing players appearing from unexpected places. A youngster developed in one club could move through the City Football Group system and eventually reach elite European football. The pathway was becoming global. For aspiring footballers, this created opportunities that didn't exist before. For competitors, it created a new challenge. How do you compete with an organization scouting talent across multiple continents simultaneously? This question revealed something important. Modern football wasn't just becoming richer. It was becoming smarter. And few organizations embraced that reality as aggressively as City Football Group. But perhaps the most surprising part of this story involves something many fans rarely discuss. Risk. Because despite the wealth, success was never guaranteed. For years, Manchester City chased the Champions League. Year after year they spent heavily. Year after year disappointment followed. Managers changed. Players arrived and departed. Critics claimed European glory would never come. Some began calling the project a failure despite domestic success. Then came the breakthrough. After years of pressure, expectation, and scrutiny, Manchester City finally won the Champions League. For many fans, it felt inevitable. But those who followed the journey closely knew how difficult it had been. The victory represented more than a trophy. It validated an entire philosophy, an entire business model, an entire football vision. And yet the story still wasn't finished. Because while trophies attract attention, influence often operates quietly. Today, City Football Group continues expanding its footprint. Its clubs compete across multiple leagues. Its academies develop talent globally. Its commercial partnerships stretch around the world. Its decisions affect players, coaches, and football markets on multiple continents. Few football organizations possess that level of reach. And that's why many experts argue that when discussing football wealth, we shouldn't only look at annual revenue or transfer spending. We should look at influence, infrastructure, global presence, long-term control. By those measurements, City Football Group becomes one of the most powerful entities football has ever seen. But this raises an important question. Is this the future of football? Will more ownership groups create global networks? Will football become dominated by multinational organizations rather than traditional standalone clubs? Signs suggest this transformation has already begun. Other investors are studying the model. Multi-club ownership structures are becoming increasingly common. The game is evolving once again. And just as many fans underestimated City Football Group in its early years, they may be underestimating where football is heading next. What's remarkable is how quickly everything happened. A little over a decade ago, Manchester City was still searching for its identity among Europe's elite. Today, the organization behind the club stands among the most influential forces in world football. That's an extraordinary transformation. And perhaps that's why this story remains so fascinating. Because it isn't just about money. It's about vision. It's about seeing possibilities before others do. It's about understanding that football isn't only 90 minutes on a pitch. It's also business, strategy, technology, infrastructure, and global influence. The richest football story isn't necessarily the one with the biggest transfer fee or the highest wage bill. Sometimes it's the story hidden beneath the surface. The story of an organization quietly building an empire while the football world focuses on the latest headline. And that may be the biggest lesson of all. In football, wealth isn't simply measured by how much money you spend. It's measured by what you build. Manchester City and City Football Group showed that lasting influence comes from creating systems, networks, and opportunities that extend far beyond a single club. Whether you admire the model or criticize it, one thing is undeniable. It changed football forever. The Untold story isn't just about becoming rich. It's about becoming powerful enough to reshape the game itself. And that is why the richest football club nobody talks about may actually be one of the most influential football organizations the world has ever seen. What do you think about this story and the knowledge shared in today's video? Share your thoughts in the comments below.